Elephants have existed in the Indian subcontinent for millions of years. They lived here in a wild state, roaming through the jungles, mostly undisturbed. As human populations grew over the centuries, they came into more contact with people, and domestication began as early as 6000 BC. People formed sometimes unique relationships with elephants, using them for entertainment, work, and religious practices that are today seen as cruel and unnecessary by many. In only 100 years, the elephant population of some 60,000 that roamed the Indian forest has been reduced by 2/3 to a mere 20,000 remaining in the wild. In addition, domesticated elephants continue to suffer, performing various duties for humans. Recently, Wildlife SOS, an NGO formed to protect and rescue elephants and other wildlife, has found itself dealing with both the treatment of work elephants, captured and abused by humans, as well as finding solutions for human-wild elephant conflict brought on by ever-shrinking forest habitats.
A few years ago, we got to know about a huge coal mine in the state of Orissa. The mouth of the coal mine was a mile across the diameter. Now that disturbed the corridors and the migration routes of elephant herds. And these elephants had no choice but to move to an adjoining state called Chhattisgarh, which is in central India. Now that state had not had wild elephants for about 100 years. So people living there had no idea what it was like to live in the vicinity of wild elephant herds. People got careless, they didn't realize the risk that involved living in close proximity to elephants, and there were a lot of accidents. We had over 90 human fatalities in a very short period of time, and that was catastrophic for the state. So the Forest Department contacted us and asked us to collaborate with them to find a solution for saving human lives, but also there was a huge amount of demand from the local communities that those elephants be poisoned, they be killed, and they be destroyed. And we didn't want that happening. The problem is that people are terrified of elephants on the ground because elephants can be dangerous, they can damage property, they can accidentally kill people. And I've seen people who've been killed by elephants. It can be quite devastating. I think that fear drives people to do whatever they can to drive wild elephants away.
Wildlife SOS founders, Kartick and Geeta, decided there had to be a plan of action where local communities could be informed about the location of these wild elephants.
I think our project in Chhattisgarh, where we work with wild elephants, is invaluable because for the first time, the people in that state of Chhattisgarh were exposed to elephants in their landscape. And the work that we had to do was pioneering work in the sense that we had to educate people in elephant behavior. We had to teach them avoidance behavior to stay out of the way of the elephants. And we had to also, same time, think of a compensation scheme by which when they had crop damage and when they lost their huts and their simple belongings, how could we help them to restart their lives again so that they would not bear a grudge against these elephants that were actually just seeking food and water and had been displaced from their own native place, so to say, or their corridors.
And it involved getting groups together, doing show and tell sessions, workshops with the local communities, getting small young men from each community to come together, create WhatsApp groups so we could get them on the ground to get them aware about the location of elephants. Now, how do we get them locations of elephants? That was a very key thing. So we could only do that if we could put a collar, a satellite collar, on an elephant. And we found it took us weeks and weeks and weeks. It's not easy. You can't just walk up to an elephant herd, find the matriarch and say, hey, here, kitty, let's put the collar on you. It doesn't work that way. It's bloody dangerous.
Wildlife SOS formed the Chhattisgarh Elephant Project. Working with the Forest Department, they came up with a plan to use radio collars on wild elephants, keeping local communities informed about the location of these herds. The idea was to track herd movements and issue alerts to the villages. The initial plan was to radio collar Ban Devi, the matriarch of 19 elephants. Training took place over weeks before actually going out into the field.
We had to get teams on the ground from our staff who would be willing to take the risk to go and radio collar these elephants.
Preparations began on a road on the edge of the forest. Tranquilizing darts were made ready. Now they just had to locate the herd and matriarch in these fragmented Chhattisgarh forests.
Putting collars on the wild elephants in Chhattisgarh was extremely dangerous, mainly because of the terrain. It was very flat. It did not give much cover to our team as they were tracking the elephants.
In addition to helping solve human-elephant conflict issues, Wildlife SOS helps troubled, captive elephants. The work it does in the wild can help prevent the capture of elephants and subsequent cruel treatment. Across India, Wildlife SOS has established 3 elephant conservation and care centres and a treatment unit. Their goal is to provide medical treatment and love to bring these elephants back into a happy state of existence. They also rescue, treat and care for elephants exploited in the abusive tourism and begging elephant trade. Recently, such an elephant came to their attention. Nina, a 60-year-old blind elephant who for years had been exploited for use in traditional weddings and as entertainment. These years took a huge toll on her appearance and mental well-being.
She was experiencing severe cruelty and extreme discomfort. And obviously, the joyful wedding guests were completely oblivious and unaware of her agony.
Nina's days were filled with torment as she was dragged by rope to walk on hot, tarred roads. This was worsened by her complete loss of vision. Shockingly, it may have been done when she was stabbed in the eyes with a bullhook. This cruelty is mostly inflicted to deceive onlookers to gain their sympathy, to dupe them for money.
Being blind and weak, she collapsed, but did not receive any medical attention, leaving her severely handicapped and compromised. She could barely move her right hind leg and needed urgent medical care.
Similar to Nina, the suffering of begging elephants is masked through brightly coloured paints and traditional beliefs that make people overlook their misery. Elephants are made to stand on concrete floors, sometimes in their own dung and urine. Not only is that degrading and unsanitary, but this can also cause medical problems such as arthritis, abscesses and foot rot. Their feet are tightly restrained. The spike chains that dig into their flesh cause excruciating pain. This is the painful life of hundreds of captive elephants living in the shadows, facing torment and exploitation every day. This had been Nina's harsh reality for nearly 6 decades. She was reduced to a mere prop for wedding processions and was forced to beg on the streets. Elephants have excellent hearing, but the combined cacophony of loudspeakers and firecrackers caused severe and unimaginable trauma to Nina.
And when I heard about Nina from our field investigators, I discussed it with the team and we immediately dispatched a Wildlife SOS team.
They had to meticulously arrange an undercover operation. Make one wrong step and her owner would have fled and they would have lost Nina to the darkness.